Hello and welcome to another session of Streaming School. It is great to have you back with us again, and we're really, really pleased to invite you to have another lesson with our good friend, international friend, David Fingertoe, who is going to be taking us through another ESL lesson. We do apologise once more for the small technical glitch that we had in the science lesson, but obviously people are doing updates and changes and boots on their computer, and so maybe some things aren't working exactly as expected beforehand. Rest assured, we will get to the bottom of whatever it was. But we're really pleased to have David with us again today. Very good morning to you, David. Well, I say good morning, but it's good evening to you over in Tokyo, is it not?
Yeah, it is a warm evening here in Tokyo. Hello, glad to be back.
Yeah, it's a bit of warmth would go a long way right now, buddy.
Yeah, you can have some of this. It just suddenly got very, very warm here. So we're reshuffling all of our closets at the moment.
We look forward to it. We very much look forward to it. All right, buddy, the screen is yours. I really look forward to your lesson, and thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. Okay, here we go. Hello, everybody. We'll get back into the ESL topic that we left off with last time. As you'll remember, we were looking at the brainstorming process and the free writing process. We did a very brief and basic outline for this essay, which we'll get back into. And we had a look at making mind maps. Want to make sure that I emphasize that it's a very good practice for you to spend 2 to 3 minutes a day, up to 5 minutes a day, brainstorming on random topics. This skill can seem quite random, but it's really useful for you as you begin to compose longer essays and have to keep track of more information, again, especially during timed writing exercises and even during your homework. So you'll remember that we looked at a bit of free writing, which was just allowing ourselves to forget about grammar and just let ideas come out of our head and get it down on paper. You can do all of these things in a journal, you can do it on just random paper, or you can do it on a document on your computer so that it's saved. And the same is true for the mind mapping. Mind mapping is something that you can do freehand. You can do it in a notebook on paper, or you can do it online. The mind map maker is a really useful tool, and it will allow you to save your mind maps in digital form, so you can email them to yourself and share them with friends if you like. We then went on into the putting together of the outline process, and from the outline process, we'll now go into the actual sentence composition process. And the two highlighted parts were the introduction sentence, because it's a little bit different than just a standard sentence, and the conclusion and transition sentences that you'll be writing at the end of every paragraph, because those are also just a little bit different. And so you're going to want to make sure that you pay special attention to them because they make a big difference. Before we get into that, I'll let you know that I'm going to start keeping track of useful vocabulary here so that you'll be able to track it back later. And we'll start with audience, because every essay that you write and every book that you read has been written for a specific audience. For most of the time in high school and university, you're going to be writing for an audience that is either your classmates or your teacher, professor, lecturer. And that's really important because it's going to dictate the kind of vocabulary, the level and style of vocabulary that you're using. And that's something that you can pick up more information about as you go along in your writing process. But generally, those who read your writing are your audience. And so you want to be paying special attention to them, especially as you are thinking about your introduction sentence. So keep in mind that here at the top there, we have the basics for an introduction paragraph. From the introduction paragraph, we want to go into how we're going to put together our introduction sentence. So the introduction sentence, the biggest part of the introduction sentence is making sure that you have something to make it interesting. So you can you can have what we call a hook or a lead, and those ideas make people, or are intended to make people, more interested in your writing. So there's sort of a comparison between the basic or common sentence versus a hook leading sentence for your first sentence in every paragraph, but especially in your introduction paragraph. So, as you'll remember, previously we were working on the topic of lockdown, right? And the ideas we had were that there was something related to friends and getting haircuts and being at home in your apartment or in your house, whatever the case may be. So we're going to stick with that. We blew those ideas up a little bit to add a little bit more information here, and we'll use those ideas in the introduction sentence. So in order to create a hook or a lead in your first sentence, what you really want to do is try and stay away from giving direct information. You have a lot of time in the rest of your essay to provide very explicit or direct information. This one sentence, the first sentence of your entire essay, is an opportunity to say something that is related, but not 100% clearly related to the whole topic of your paragraph. So if we're talking about lockdown, we've already said that I did some things during lockdown. I stayed home. I didn't visit my friends. I didn't go to school. I did spend a lot of time with my family, and it was not fun, and I wanted to go back to school. So this is the kind of general idea that we're using to compose this essay. All right, so in my first sentence then, I want to do what we call allude. You can look this word up too, allusion, and we're talking about allude, right? I want to allude to my main ideas without using my main ideas 100%. So maybe I say something like, lockdown 2020 was an interesting time, even though I didn't think it was going to be. Okay, now here you can see that, of course, the language here is quite basic. So hopefully if you are in high school and you getting up into the intermediate levels, you're able to use all of these words and are familiar with all of these words. And also the sort of structure of the sentence, not too complex. But what I mean by alluding and using allusions is that there's no very, very clear information in this first sentence. And that's okay, because it allows me to add a lot more information afterward, because I can now relate to explaining this first sentence. So it's more interesting because it says it was an interesting time. Now, what do I mean by that? It's not entirely clear. I didn't think it was going to be interesting. Well, what did I think it was going to be? Again, that's not entirely clear. And all of that is very useful in the writing process because it allows for more ideas to follow up after this. Otherwise, your essays will all be sort of A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everything will follow after the other. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, you certainly need to make sure that your ideas connect. And if you can make your ideas connect in less obvious ways, that is going to be a slightly higher level of writing, so long as your ideas are clear. So let's get into this a little bit more. So what do I say about why lockdown was interesting, even though I didn't think it was going to be? So I stayed home in my apartment. Okay, so let's create, this is going to be the second sentence here in my introduction paragraph. Let's see. I spent almost all of my time in my apartment with my family. Okay, so you can see that I've connected a couple of ideas that are from different parts of the my outline, and that's okay as well, because I have a little bit more information now that I want to write down. So that's something that I did do, right? I spent most of my time with my family. So those are two ideas, and also that's an indication of what I did do. So maybe now in my next sentence, I can talk about what I didn't do. I didn't see any of my friends because we had to participate in, I guess, participate in social distancing. So I've got 3 good sentences here. Now I need to be focusing on, and I'm going to highlight this one here because it's a slightly unique sentence, right? It's the introduction sentence. And then I will highlight my next one here as well, because this is going to be an example of a conclusion or transition sentence. So every paragraph needs to end somehow. And this can be very tricky to do on a regular basis. It's not always easy for us as writers to think about how we're going to move from one idea to the next idea. So this takes a long time to master this skill, and you continue to work on it really forever. For as long as you write, you have to continue to, or at least I do, have to continue to develop this skill. So let's see how I can keep going with these ideas that I've already shared in my introduction paragraph. And I also want to be thinking about how I can keep the rest of my essay moving forward, because that is what is going to allow me to not get stuck while I'm writing. So for a conclusion transition sentence, maybe even though I was at home with my family, or maybe not even though, how about? So I want to change that. So being home with my family was even more fun than spending time with my friends. And that was interesting. Don't have to say, and that was interesting, but hopefully that makes it a little bit clearer for you to see that that is the point. That's the emphasis of that sentence. So let's make it another color as well, because it's a little bit different. Okay, so now what I've got here are 4 sentences. And the important thing about the introduction paragraph is that those sentences can now serve as topic sentences for each paragraph. So if you're thinking about it like that, then this is kind of going to be the first paragraph topic, second paragraph topic, third paragraph topic, and maybe I'm going to incorporate that, or maybe it's going to end up being an actual 4th paragraph. But you'll see here that you can now brainstorm ideas for each of these topic sentences. So lockdown 2020 was an interesting time, even though I didn't think it was going to be. Okay, so I need to figure out a way to now move that into an entire paragraph, right? So number 2, I spent almost all of my time in my apartment with my family is also going to be an entire paragraph. And then same for 3 and same for 4. So the reason that this style is potentially useful for you as an early writer is because it can be very difficult, number 1, to compose an introduction paragraph, because usually the ideas are still quite fresh and it can be complicated to order and organize them. Aside from that, when you're writing the actual body paragraphs, it can be also very complicated to figure out what information you want to put into the body paragraphs. So let's very quickly let me give you kind of overview for the essay structure. Yeah. So the first one is going to be the introduction paragraph. That's going to have supporting ideas and details in it. Same thing. Sometimes you might see your teachers write just a quotation mark or inverted commas, they're called sometimes. What this means is that the line above that is being copied. So I can also do that here because it's supporting details, ideas, supporting details, ideas, supporting details, ideas, right? And then maybe transition sentence. Excuse me. Okay, so that's one paragraph, right? Now, the next paragraph is going to be your first body paragraph. Now, what's in your body paragraph? Well, you've got a kind of intro sentence, and then you've got the same thing, supporting details, supporting ideas, sentences. C will be same thing, D will be the same thing. And then for E, you're going to have another transition sentence. So a paragraph is usually, yeah, I can give it to you in the vocabulary section, huh? A paragraph, usually 5 to 7 sentences, no matter how you spell it. So if you're following this format, you're very likely to develop a strong kind of muscle memory for how to compose essays. One of the dangers with writing, or one of the things that is complicated for a lot of people, is writing randomly. So just trying to write sentences from random ideas that you might have. And what ends up happening is that you get confused. We all do. And so the best way you can do it is, at least while you're learning in the early days of how to compose essays, try to follow some style of procedure or process. And so this process, I think, is very useful. And again, I want to encourage you to use it. Okay, so let's go back up to looking at how to compose the first essay, the first paragraph of this essay. So what I can do is I can just immediately take maybe my first sentence, which I've already written, so I don't have to think of anything new. And I will start my essay by, number one, removing the highlight. Oh, it was an interesting time, even though I didn't think it was going to be. Now I can go into some more details about this topic. And that can also be tricky, but let's just give it a try. So lockdown was more interesting than I thought it was going to be, essentially. All right. Staying at home sounded very boring because I would not be able to see my friends and I wouldn't be leaving the house at all, let's say. I was worried because I was worried that I might forget some information from school. So what I'm doing here is just basically providing kind of random tidbits of information that are just off the top of my head. If this is an essay that is from my personal experience, then I use my background information to fill out the topics. So there's another important topic that you can remember, and something that you want to be able to rely on, right? For background information, for knowledge. You're going to hear these topics when you're in school, and so hopefully you'll have a little bit more of an idea what they mean and how you can use them. But if it's an essay like this, which is about my personal life, then I have no choice but to use information that is from my real life or from my imagination. I could also use my imagination if I want to, which is actually what I'm doing here. But using your imagination to write is also quite, it takes a lot of practice. And so that's what you're going to want to be focusing on. It shouldn't be easy, but you want to make the sentence composition as easy as possible. And again, using this process makes it very repetitive, which is going to make it easier for you to do it in the future. So I was worried that I might forget some information from school. None of my friends could imagine when we would return to school. Now let's see, here we're going to have a transition sentence, okay? So I spent almost all of my time in my apartment with my family. I know that this is going to be the main topic of my next paragraph. Because I've already got that in my outline and in my introduction paragraph, I already know that that is a topic I'm going to be using. So what this does is allow me to think about the most effective transition sentence from my first paragraph. So I know I'm going to be talking about my apartment. How about my apartment is a good size, but I was still worried that I would get stuck in my room all day, every day. Okay, now, what you see here is that the last sentence of the paragraph is setting me up, the writer, setting me up and also setting up the reader to learn about a new topic, or at least to read about a new topic. That new topic is going to be about my apartment. And because I have this sentence from my outline and my introduction paragraph, I also know that I'm going to be focusing this entire next paragraph, this one here, I'll be focusing this paragraph on information that relates to both my apartment and my family. So we will look at composing the next 2 or 3 paragraphs as well as the conclusion paragraph in future classes. And as always, please feel free to send questions or requests to us here at Stream School, and we will look to meet with you again and share more ESL information in the near future.
Thank you so much, buddy. Really, really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
What does the rest of the evening find you doing?
We'll have some dinner, and then we will get ready for the week here.
Fantastic.
What about you all? Are you guys just getting your day started then?
Yeah, so now it's going to be going up to 12 o'clock midday. We've got a lot of changes to discuss with Nish and the team around how we change and maximize streaming school. So yeah, that's going to be it. And then now it's going to be homeschooling and then running 4 different companies and dealing with all the fun that comes with that. But I should take this position in the screen more often, just kind of sliding away and letting the sunlight at the far end of the room just kind of speak for itself.
Good news.
We'll
look forward to the next one.
Very much so. Have a great day, buddy.
All right, thanks again.
Catch you in a bit. Bye.
Bye-bye.